Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Pandaphil Plays and welcome to Disney Chat. So, Disney Plus Day has happened. 2 years of Disney Plus and I have loved every single moment of it. This past year there's been so many films, so many series, loads of Disney original content which is amazing, so good. And I wanted to do a video talking about some of these great Disney Plus exclusive films and series which have come out over the past year that I really liked, and hopefully you will like too. You'll maybe think of watching some of these that I have mentioned, or maybe you already have. You may have different thoughts, different opinions. Maybe you may think of some films and series that I haven't mentioned. All this put in the comments. I would love to read them, and I will apologise if you point out something that came out in the past year that I totally forgot about. Heads up, I'm sorry. But just what I've done is I'm going to be talking about things that I really liked that didn't come out outside of Disney Plus, so they didn't go out into the cinemas. These are all exclusive Disney Plus. So this will be putting aside the likes of Shang-Chi, Black Widow, basically a lot of the Marvel films, as well as Jungle Cruise as well. They all came out in cinema, in the UK at least, therefore I won't be looking at those. But here are some of my favourite films and series that came out in the past year on Disney Plus. First of all, let's take ourselves into a galaxy far away, into Star Wars. We had Mandalorian Season 2. It was incredible. It brought back old characters which I got so excited about, especially the final episode. That I was going nuts over that. It was a massive improvement, I think, from the whole storyline of Season 1, because Season 1, a lot of my friends would say, felt like a video game. It was pretty much, each episode was a mission came about, the mission was completed, end of episode. The major overarching storyline wasn't really clear. However, in Season 2, there was an effort put into each episode to make it clear that there is a bigger story going on that is being dealt with, as well as the situation that's being addressed in that very specific episode. It was great. And I am looking forward to all the various future things that are coming out, especially the book of Boba Fett, because that will be following on from what happened in Season 2. From that, we had Star Wars The Bad Batch, which we saw a bit of a glimpse of from Star Wars The Clone Wars in the final season. I loved The Clone Wars. It was a great series, except for that one series within it, which I will not talk about. But it reminds me, to an extent, similar to what happened with Mandalorian, how much I enjoy learning about the other characters in the Star Wars universe over the Jedi. I think there's just so much more going on with them, and maybe that's something that they need to, that Star Wars will need to think about. Actually, how do you make the Jedi seem that little bit more interesting? Because everyone else has been more interesting. Like the clones were more interesting. Mandalorian, Boba Fett, more interesting in my opinion than the Jedi. So that's why I've really enjoyed them. But saying that, Star Wars Visions almost gave us an answer to that question, because I have never experienced or watched anything like Star Wars Visions before, but I loved it, and it brought in characters who were essentially Jedi. They were Force sensitive, and I wanted to know more about them. There was such great stories, such great characters, and I really hope that some of those episodes will be considered into making into films or into a series, because the characters were fantastic and I just fell in love with it, and I hope they do more of these, because there were some really amazing original ideas and I want them to be explored further. Moving from a galaxy far away to a universe of many heroes and many villains, I'm talking about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. This has been a great year for Marvel. They have brought out Wandavision, Falcon and the Winter Soldier, Loki, as well as What If. So much talk about in each of them, but I'm going to try and break it down a little bit as best as I can. Starting off with Wandavision. I know some people complained about it, they thought it was too slow, but actually I really loved it. I loved how they brought in different TV areas and showing an appreciation for those in the most smallest of details, but also making some real clear differences where something wasn't quite right. And it's such a turn in the typical Marvel filmmaking. It was fantastic. My only frustration with it was that one of the key actresses that was in it was revealed to be Agatha before it even came out, and it therefore meant it was quite clear who the villain was going to be. I was hoping that wouldn't be the case. I was hoping that maybe Agatha would eventually in the future become this villain, but that didn't happen, so it wasn't really the shock reveal I was hoping for. We then had Falcon and the Winter Soldier, and this was such a good series. I should mention, by the way, if you ask me to rate them between the best and worst, I don't think I can. They are so good in their own unique ways. And Falcon and Winter Soldier shows that, because although it was very similar in terms of it showed us their lives post Endgame, as well as looking at the psychological impact of it and the political impact of it, it brought us to a whole different question within the series, especially for the likes of Sam Wilson, which was, who is Captain America? Is it this? Is it just Steve Rogers, or is there more to it? Is there a certain vision of it? Is there what's going on in everyone else's opinions as to who Captain America is? It was a great it was a great question to be explored throughout the whole series, and also just to have that real character development that was much needed for Sam Wilson and Bucky Barnes, because they're both great characters, but they don't get enough character development in the films. And after this series, I just want to see more of them. They are brilliant, and I'm so excited for what the future holds for them. We then had Loki, and I was really looking forward to this because it was an MCU villain getting their own series. It was amazing. I loved it. I loved Owen Wilson's character. He played it so well, and it was again a great change within the MCU. But I had the same issue with it that I did with WandaVision. The villain, or I guess the orchestrator behind the whole issue of Loki, was predictable, because it was announced again that this actor was going to be playing this particular character. Therefore, it was very obvious that they were the villain. They were going to be the shock villain. It was slightly saved by the fact that they weren't the villain, but it was also made more exciting when you realise how much things change because of a very simple act in the end of the episode. And finally, in the world of Marvel, we had What If. It was brilliant. I love the various alternative possibilities the show offered. There were some weird ones, I'm going to admit. Some of them were really strange, and I really wasn't interested in them, but I felt like I should watch them. What I loved about it was that it was, compared to the rest of the shows, it seemed like each episode was its own entity, that there was no overarching storyline, there was no connections with different bits and pieces, but actually they were connected. As you realise towards the end of the series, that there's a whole big overarching story that connects them all together, and it made it so interesting. But also, we got to experience Chadwick Boseman voice acting T'Challa for the final time, which was a emotional yet beautiful and very humbling moment to just watch and listen. I won't cry. So we've done Star Wars, we have done Marvel. Now let's just look at the whole world of Disney and Pixar. So we had Soul, which was a really interesting film that I was so worried about when it first got promoted, because it was a film about life and death. Pretty intense, okay? Like, that's not for families, children. That is a very intense topic to talk about. Yet it was made in a really interesting, fun and accessible way. And it shows how good Pixar are at storytelling. But one thing I want to point out, and I don't know if this has just been overlooked, the cat gets killed. If you don't believe me, watch the film again, have a little think about why I think this, and you'll realise, yeah, the cat's killed. Just keep that in mind. We also had Flora and Ulysses, which was essentially a film about a squirrel, but not just any squirrel, a squirrel with superpowers. If that does not take your interest, then leave this video, come back in 5 minutes, and try again. I loved it. It was a great film. It was so much fun, and it was sort of playing on the Marvel characters, that sort of love for Marvel, but it wasn't Marvel at all. I think some people thought it was sort of like a preparation towards Squirrel Girl. It wasn't. It was just a great film, and I loved it. I mean, who can not love a super squirrel? You can't. There's nothing to complain about. Monsters at Work. I loved Monsters Inc. I used to watch it so many times as a child, so when this came out, I was very excited. It pretty much follows on from the arrest of Waternoose, and I think the series finishes at the final scene of Monsters Inc., where just before it's revealed to Sally that Mike has fixed Boo's door. So I really liked it because it sort of put something within that to understand how it developed from being a scare factory to a laugh factory. But I thought it was really good. You could tell that it wasn't really like being done by Pixar. There were also some new characters, and let me make it clear, I'm not talking about the immediate new characters that were within the particular team, but those that were also part of Monsters Inc. that were brand new. Like where, like for example, the one that was related to Roz, as well as the one that looked like Mike Wazowski. They tried to make them into a big deal, especially with some of those, especially considering who was being the voice actors in those. But it just didn't work for me. I don't think they were that much of a big deal. Like the main team were the main focus. Everyone else didn't seem like that much of an interest to me. And finally, we had Luca. Luca has a special place in my heart because it's just such a beautiful film. It was a tearjerker towards the end. I'm not gonna lie, probably getting a little bit teary now. But I love Italy, so it took my interest already. But it's a wonderful story about friendship, about being different, discrimination, perseverance. There's so much going on in that film, but it was handled so well. It was a lovely film. It was beautiful, and it's definitely up there in my top Disney Plus releases from the past year. But that is all I have time for. If I try to go through every single thing that I watched that came out this past year, we would be here for a long time, by which point I think you would have been fed up and decided just to go watch everything anyway. But I'm excited for what Disney Plus has to offer over this next year. Maybe I'll do another Disney Plus review next year. I hope so. It'd be great to just talk more about Disney Plus and all that it has to offer. But that is the end of this Disney chat. So I say to you, have a great morning, a great afternoon, and a great evening, and I hope to see you next time. Bye!